Over Black Friday weekend, we're offering 22% off everything in the TLDR store, from our cute countries with shoes pins, including the UK and United Kingdom set, to stickers and even our book, Brexit the Colouring Book. Get our biggest discounts of the year by using code BLACKFRIDAY. It's fair to say that Boris Johnson's had a bit of a rough time lately. He was struggling to speak the other week, which led to speculation in the media about whether he's under the weather, and then when he seemingly got better, he was berated for his speech at the CBI, in which he ranted about Peppa Pig World and did an impersonation of a car. Now, it seems, his own party may be turning on him, with some speculation that letters have been submitted to the 1922 committee, meaning that the ball may have started rolling on a no-confidence vote. So let's have a look into whether the public still backs him, whether the party still backs him, and if not, how they'd go about replacing him. To see whether the public still backs him, let's have a look at some polling figures. According to a poll of polls, while the Conservatives were ahead throughout much of 2021, peaking in around June, their lead had tightened significantly by the beginning of November. By late November, their lead had disappeared, and Labour were ahead by as much as 6% in some polls. There are likely a number of reasons for this, not least the corruption scandals, the various crises such as fuel crisis, the inflation crisis, etc., the national insurance uplift, and the U-turns over the changes to the Standards Committee. It is possible, though, that while the public is blaming the Conservative Party for many of these problems, for example the corruption scandals, they still view Johnson favourably. Perhaps this is a party problem, not a leader problem. Luckily, we can evaluate this by looking at YouGov's approval rating of Boris Johnson. Largely, his approval rating maps onto that of the Conservative Party more generally, demonstrating that in the minds of the electorate, party and leader are often conflated. Moreover, as this approval rating shows, Johnson is currently the most unpopular he's ever been since he assumed the office of Prime Minister in July 2019. The question is, though, what does this mean for Johnson? The next general election is currently scheduled for 2024, which is still a little while yet. Under the current system, there are two ways to schedule an election early. First, the government can schedule a motion in the House of Commons for an early election. This, though, requires a supermajority of 2/3. This is how the 2017 general election was called. The second way an election can be called is by creating a new bill to circumvent the rules, and therefore requires only a simple 50% majority. This is how the 2019 general election was called. The point is, to call an early election, a minimum of a simple majority is required. As Johnson has an 80-seat majority, the prospect of an early election lives and dies on his command. And ask yourself this, if you're behind in the polls and you're the most unpopular you've ever been as Prime Minister, would you be reaching for the early election button? Especially when your predecessor, Theresa May, called a snap election with her ahead in the polls by more than 20%, only to end up with a reduced majority. So, it's highly unlikely that the Prime Minister will call for an election anytime soon, meaning that he's highly unlikely to be replaced by an opposition party leader like Keir Starmer. This isn't, though, the only way that Johnson can be removed from number 10. As history has shown us, it's not uncommon for a Prime Minister to be removed from office by their own party. Of the 15 post-war Prime Ministers, 5 of them have resigned due to pressures within their own party. Considering that each Prime Minister has a 1 in 3 chance of being toppled by their own people, particularly in times when they're faring badly in polls, it seems only appropriate to look into the mechanisms by which Johnson could be ousted, and evaluate if this is any more likely than an early election. There are 2 ways that Tory backbenchers have toppled their Prime Ministers in the past, in an informal way and in a formal way. The first informal way is simply by applying pressure to their leader. This is how Theresa May was toppled. If you cast your mind back to the pre-pandemic world of politics, you'll remember that May tried and failed 3 times to pass her Brexit deal. Just before the 3rd attempt, she promised her party that if they backed her deal, she'd resign soon after. Although they voted it down, it became clear that she was desperate and her power was waning. In effect, her party had voted down a key piece of legislation, not once but 3 times. This, combined with ministerial resignations, such as that of Andrea Leadsom, demonstrated to May that she had little to no authority left over her party, and by virtue of that, her government. As such, she resigned. This is obviously a possibility for Johnson too. However, despite his recent poll slumps, Johnson is still succeeding in passing key pieces of legislation with ease. Think back to the Coronavirus Act, one of the most significant bills since the Second World War. It passed with ease, with the Conservatives and Labour backing it, and despite backbenchers, known as the Coronavirus Recovery Group, trying to vote down the subsequent Coronavirus Act reviews, Johnson still managed to keep his party behind him, winning both reviews with only 7 Tory MPs voting against it in September 2020, and only 35 voting against in March 2021. The point is that May failed in keeping her party on side in her major pieces of legislation. Johnson, however, has managed to keep his party on side. So it seems that Johnson is unlikely, at least while he keeps winning major Commons votes, to be pressured to resign due to his inability to control his party. However, there is another way he can be removed. That is, through the party growing tired of his leadership, or just simply believing he's not the right man for the job anymore. In effect, a formal demonstration that the Conservative Party has no confidence in their leader. To start the no-confidence process, Conservative backbenchers need to signal their discontent in the leader by writing to the chairperson of the 1922 committee, the committee that represents backbenchers. If the chairperson receives such letters from at least 15% of the Conservative Party, then a vote of no confidence is called. Currently, this equates to 55 MPs. While there's speculation in the news at the moment that some letters have been sent, it's highly unlikely that this will come to anything. It just isn't likely that many letters have been sent. 55 is a huge number, and there'd need to be serious and sustained dissatisfaction with Johnson for MPs to put their neck on the line to oust him. To be fair though, one Tory MP has claimed it will not get anywhere near to the 50 letters you would need, but it does cause angst. Another Tory kind of backed this up by claiming, if the next month is like the last month and horror stories continue, more letters will be submitted. So it is theoretically possible that if he continues to upset Tory MPs, the magic number could be reached. But what happens then? Well, soon after the letters are received, a vote of no confidence is held. All Conservative MPs are entitled to vote, and if at least 50% of the votes demonstrate that the leader can demand the confidence of the party, then they remain in charge, and, as an added bonus, no additional votes of no confidence can be used against them for another year. If they lose, though, a leadership election's called, and they cannot stand. To stand, an MP must receive at least 8 nominations. There are then multiple rounds to whittle down the candidates to one that can, in effect, claim that they have the support of at least half the party. Now, if Boris Johnson does lose a vote of no confidence from his party for the reasons outlined earlier, it's likely that his colleagues would back a popular Conservative politician in this leadership race. After all, they're selecting someone to try and get them to win a general election. According to YouGov, the most popular Conservative MP is Rishi Sunak, with a 36% popularity rating and a fame rating of 96%. Below him are Boris Johnson and Theresa May, who, for obvious reasons, wouldn't run again for Prime Minister. Below them is Ruth Davidson, an unlikely candidate, but if she did decide to run, a likely popular one. Below her is Sajid Javid. Then, skipping a few other unlikely candidates due to their age, we get to Dominic Raab and then Jacob Rees-Mogg. So, while it's currently likely that Rishi Sunak would be a popular choice to succeed Johnson, as we discussed in a recent video, this very much depends on his ability to distance himself from whatever brings Johnson down. Following Cameron's EU referendum failure, George Osborne opted not to stand in the leadership contest, likely because he was tainted in the same way that Cameron was. This is despite him also being Chancellor and in a prime position to succeed Cameron. Nonetheless, this is mere speculation. Exactly whether the rumours about confidence in Johnson continues is as yet unknown. But what do you think? Are these rumours the beginning of the end for Johnson, or is this just a story that will be forgotten about in a couple of weeks? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like I said at the start, if you use code Black Friday in the store this weekend, you'll get 22% off everything. You heard me, 22%. You can even get 2 signed copies of our Brexit the Colouring Book for just $14.99 if you use the link below. Now that is some good Brexit news. Anyway, treat yourself and your TLDR loving friends by heading to the store, and by doing so supporting our work. Thanks. And as always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers for making videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description below.